Hi, this is the November 13th, 2021 meeting, and we have, we're here for a recipe sharing event. And we are going to send out the recipes to those who request them. If you're those who are here, obviously get them first. And if you're watching this later on the video, we will send it out to you when you request the recipes. Now I'm going to share my screen just briefly, and I'm going to look at not look at again, but we started with the apple cider brined roast turkey. And that's from Jeannie Baird. And she creates a brine, keeps the turkey cold in the brine for 1 to 2 days before baking, and then bakes it really fast at 500 for 30 minutes, and then turns the heat down to 350 for another 2 hours, and then rests it for 15 minutes. So that will be on the recipe that you get when you ask for that. Second recipe.
Before we leave that, you mentioned weighting down to keep the turkey submerged in the brine. You talked about a brick. I would say wrap that brick after you clean it in foil, and
Yes.
it might be more effective to then place that inside a saucepan that it has a flatter surface that would hold down more of the turkey in the brine.
Well, you've got such a big container for the turkey that it might not, another flatter container might not work. I've not done it with a brick. I did it with a plate. Actually, I have a heavy plate, and I put the plate upside down, and it pushed down just enough to get it all under the brine. But it is important to keep it under the brine the whole time. You're right. But somebody else had recommended the brick, cleaning the brick, and I think they did say that they covered it with foil to further protect it, because the bricks got kind of porous. So that would be a good idea. This is another of Jeannie's recipes, and if you have been to one of our holiday potlucks in the past, you have probably had this recipe. It is her au gratin potatoes, or as my mother used to say, old rotten potatoes. But I never had them this way when I was a girl, because we had them in a box, and there was dried potatoes and some sauce, and they were pretty good, but not as good as Jeannie's. So what she does, this is one of her recipes that she developed first, because she had a recipe that calls for a cheesy sauce with wheat in it, with flour in it. And so she developed this recipe when her grandson needed to be celiac, or has celiac and needed to be gluten-free. So you've got your potatoes. You can peel them or not, depending on what you want. Slice them in thin slices. And then you're going to use salt and pepper, of course. And she uses sharp cheddar cheese. And you can use different kinds of cheddar cheese if you want to. And then 1.5 cups of half and half whipped cream.
It is so good.
It really is. But it's not that hard. You butter the baking dish. You place half the potatoes, sort of overlapping slices, in the dish, salt and pepper them, and sprinkle half the cheese on. Then you repeat with the rest of the potatoes, overlapping slices, and then you heat the cream for about 2.5 minutes in the microwave, and you pour the hot cream over all that cheese and potato stuff. And then you bake it for 45 minutes at a 350-degree oven. And they come out absolutely wonderful. It's so good. The potatoes are just soft, but they're still part of the cheese and the cream. It's really a good dish.
I don't see where she says add the second half of the cheese.
Well, she says repeat with the remaining potatoes, and that means putting the potatoes and the cheese down.
Okay.
And then you heat the cream and put over the whole bunch of stuff. That heat is what she uses there. And then sometimes it depends on your oven, of course. The top of the potatoes might get to a little browner than you want, and it's still not cooked through. So she just says to cover it with foil when that happens. And then you don't want to get them brown too much before, but they still have to cook. Any questions about that one? It's a great side dish. And everybody that I see in the fixed menus puts mashed potatoes with the turkey because the gravy goes so nicely on it. But frankly, I would rather put the gravy on my dressing and my turkey and save the gravy and not put it on there and then use the au gratin potatoes because they are delicious. Okay, any questions? Okay, the next one that I had to share was the recipe for green bean casserole. But this is the one from the gluten-free magazine, Simply Gluten-Free magazine. But Jack, you can, since you don't have yours to look at, you can see what might be different with this one.
Real quick, does yours involve making a roux with the
Are you
flour
asking,
and stock?
you asking me?
I'm asking Carol Ann before we hear Jack's.
Oh, this does not, well, no, it doesn't really involve a roux. I don't believe, I can't remember. Olive oil and butter, mushrooms, add
Okay.
butter, and I don't think so.
Well, it does use the flour though. It had 4 tablespoons.
Yeah,
of
it does. It
gluten-free
does probably,
flour.
but it does. I don't know that it's a roux. We'll have to go through it. I can't. I didn't look all the way through that one because I've done it before. It also uses shallots rather than onions because shallots you can just put them in a flour and then sort of saute them in oil and they get crispy. And that's what she's used as the topping rather than the actual breaded onion ring things that we have in most recipes that are filled with gluten. Jack, can you see if there's any ingredients that are different in your recipe?
Well, the primary difference is going to be added ingredients. And when I've brought this to our gluten-free events, I've kept these ingredients separate for you people to add if they wish, because some of the people might have other allergens. But
Okay.
basically, those additional components are walnuts and feta cheese.
Oh,
So if
okay.
you're okay with the cheese, it's really nice to have the feta on it. Also have dried cranberry.
Do you roast those walnuts a little bit before you?
Yeah.
Okay. And you said something
and-
about cranberry?
Yeah, dried cranberries too. If if you don't like sweet, you leave those off, but
Sure.
they kind of have a nice
Okay.
nice added flavor to
But
it.
you use fresh green beans. And I
Right.
think that's one of the best things about this recipe is because a lot of people make the traditional one with canned green beans and they're just limp. But
Yeah,
fresh green beans and then they also use regular mushrooms and onions so that you're making sort of that mushroom soup combination with that component. And
Yeah.
they've got tamari in there or other gluten-free soy sauce could be used, as well as the fact that they're using nutmeg. And I love nutmeg and things like this. And most people don't put that in. And she's also using water chestnuts in this recipe for that crunch factor. Okay. So she's going to boil the green beans, but cook for only 3 minutes. So they're still bright and crisp and not not limp. And then drain them and put them in ice water real quickly so that they cool down and then drain them again. She's using both olive oil and butter in a skillet and adding the mushrooms and cooking them, and then removing the mushrooms and adding more butter and cooking the onion. So she wants the the mushrooms cooked before the onions so that the combination of the flavors don't get in there.
Yeah, mine has also got some lemon zest
Oh, wow.
at times I've used lemon juice.
Okay, that's always good for just brightening up things.
Yeah,
A little
yeah.
tang.
And I tend to lean towards red onions rather than the other onions. I just feel like I like that flavor a little better.
And you can use the sweet onions like the Vidalias. You can use white
Yeah.
onions or yellow onions or red onions. It's up to you what kind of onions to use, whether you like the flavor. So what they've done then is sift the flour over. So it is making a roux essentially with the butter that's in the bottom of the pan with the garlic and the onion. Then adding the stock and the half and half and the tamari. So you create your own sauce in that way. And then you season that sauce with the nutmeg and the water chestnuts. You add back your mushrooms and the beans, beans. What kind of beans? We didn't have any beans. Oh, the green beans. Sure.
Oh,
The green
the
beans. Like beans? The green beans. Okay. I think green beans would have helped if she just put greens in. Anyway, taste and test with salt and pepper, and you put it in the buttered baking dish for 30 minutes. And then while that's baking, you can fry the shallots. And I've done this before. You use cornstarch, and the cornstarch is really good for shrimp and a lot of other things. It makes a crispy exterior. You cut them widthwise so that they make little rings, and then you toss them in the cornstarch, and then you put them in oil, and then you do a few at a time because you don't want to overfill the pan so that they each get crispy, and then you remove them and onto a paper towel plate until you've got them all done.
Yeah,
And
and in my case, the this would also be where the walnuts get
get
introduced
warmed up in that
with the
process
shallots. Yeah,
as well. That's a good idea. I like the walnuts with it. I think that would be good.
I do.
So you top it with the fried shallots and then put it back in the oven for 5 more minutes.
Jack, with yours, am I remembering you can serve it warm or cold?
Yeah, yeah. It's. I've typically brought it cold just because we're traveling and it's not going to stay very warm, or at least it's less complicated to not have to worry about warming it up. But yeah, you can eat it warm. I think if anything, I sort of prefer it cold, just for crunch and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any questions about that green bean casserole and the variations that Jack brings to it?
I just wanted to comment, and I'm sure you guys may know this already, but Walmart carries a gluten-free cream of mushroom soup.
Mm.
That's not too bad to use in casseroles if you wanted to save the time. And then I have been able to find the crispy onion rings, that you put on top instead of
They're
using the
gluten-free?
gluten-free. I found them, and
Wow.
I'll go while we're talking, I'll go look in the pantry. I forgot to look. I want to say, and I know the store names are different. It was either Tom Thumb or Kroger, and I don't know what stores those translate into.
Well, we have Kroger's here. If it was Kroger
Okay.
brand. Gretchen?
I saw some at Aldi too. I don't know if you ever shop at Aldi. I can run and get those also. I've got the onion rings. Those are so good. It's hard
Right.
for me not to just eat the whole container in one sitting.
That is,
So good.
but
They're gluten-free, of course.
I have not seen them in my Publix recently, but then I haven't gone looking for them either.
Yeah, I can go get mine too if you're.
Yeah, go ahead and do that. And I'll put the next one up there. What are we gonna do next? The desserts. What's the other dessert? Okay, there's that dessert.
So I think these must have been Tom Thumb. Can you, I gotta see if I can,
Yeah, we can see it.
and then you
Organic
can
French fried
see,
onions. And there's a gluten-free symbol on it.
yeah, and it says certified
Uh-huh. Yeah,
gluten-free. So this is what it looks like. So it makes it just a lot easier.
it does. It does. I've done it with the shallots and I really like that, but I didn't have access to gluten-free French onion rings. Did
Yeah,
you,
and I,
which ones did you get, Gretchen?
Well, I just had Archie clear them.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, he just looked at me. Let's see, let me put it here. These are the ones I get from Aldi.
Oh,
Oh, and they're
okay.
organic.
Organic, gluten-free. That's that
Complete
brand.
Nature.
That's kind of typically their brand at Aldi.
Okay.
We have a new one right here on the border of Brentwood and Nolensville. It's so clean and it's my favorite to shop because they keep
Oh.
the conveyor belt spotless. There's never wheat stuck to something on the
belt.
checkout belt.
Oh,
That one is on Nolensville Road when you go south of
Yes, Concord.
Hickory. Well, yeah,
Concord.
south of Concord actually too. But
Yeah.
from my house, I have to go all that way. But yeah, it looks like a good store. I haven't gone in it yet. It's over across on the, you have to turn left and I haven't done that yet, but that's a
Yeah.
good idea. They have.
Oh, it's brand new and just beautiful. Yeah, I love it there.
And you still have to have a quarter when you go, right?
Yes. Takes a while to get used to that.
Yeah, I don't have a quarter with me very often. And in fact, I thought, oh, I should stop at Aldi's. And I went, I don't have a quarter.
Oh,
I keep one tucked in a small little pocket in my purse, and that's
That's a
all it
great
is
idea.
my Aldi's quarter.
me too.
Aldi's quarter. Yeah.
what do you need a quarter for?
To get
For
a
the
cart,
shopping carts.
Shopping cart.
Oh,
you get it back, but you have to put a quarter in to get the cart out. And then when you leave, you put it back in and you get a quarter back.
Yeah.
But you have to have your quarter before you can even shop. And you should take your own bags because you end up bagging your own groceries
oh wow.
as well, which is why they're cheaper, evidently. But also, the Aldi's company is basically connected to Europe, and a lot of the products that come for gluten-free products anyway are coming from Europe. They're importing those products.
Yeah, I think it's from Germany.
Germany
Yeah.
and Italy predominantly, yeah. Okay, so any more questions about green bean casserole and getting gluten-free onion rings?
Well, actually, I'm excited to try Jack's recipe. That sounds really good. I think, Jack, I'll be using that one.
Jack's
I'll
is
have to-
Jack's is the best. I had it at the picnic. It was the highlight of the picnic for me. I went back for seconds and thirds, and
I'm,
it was so
blush-
good.
I'm blushing.
It was really good.
It is good. Now, this recipe is a dessert recipe for you, Sue, and it's a little variation on a traditional pumpkin pie. I get bored with pumpkin pie, and there's so much pumpkin, but this is a praline top on top of it. So what they've done is they have a regular pie crust. Now, I can make my own pie crust, but I think it's easier for these kind of events to go buy the pre-done gluten-free pie crust, and they have those at Kroger's and they have them, I think, at Aldi's as well. Have you gotten them at all?
I haven't seen them at Aldi, but it might be there, but Publix has them too.
Publix has them.
They're-
I get mine at Publix, but also Whole Foods.
Yes.
Oh, of course, yeah. But I
And-
don't know that they have it at Aldi. I don't know if anybody else has seen them. I don't
I-
think they do.
I haven't shopped in Aldi's in a while, so I don't know, but
And what brand do you use? Because this is where one of the epic failures came in is I did buy a gluten-free pie crust and we made the pumpkin pie. The crust came out so hard, and I'm not exaggerating, you could not even cut it with the fork. I mean, we literally just ate the
stuff-
pumpkin pie and
Yeah.
no one could eat the crust. I mean, you could have held it, and, just scoop the stuff out. And I have no clue what we did wrong. We
Well,
partially,
did you,
it was
did you
just,
partially bake it first?
yes.
Yes. Perhaps you baked it too long.
Yeah, maybe. And see, that's the thing. I don't think they give you instructions, and we couldn't tell when it was done or not done. So we
Well,
obviously
you
must
don't
have.
want it, yeah, you don't want to cook it maybe longer than, I would say 10 minutes at the most, 5 or 10 minutes, because you just want it partially cooked so that when you put your filling in, then it cooks the rest of the way. And I would say you probably left it in too long and unbaked. And then when it was baked, it turned into a slab.
Yeah, I mean, it was a rock. I mean, that
You-
was.
Yeah. Do you know which flours were used in it?
I know I bought it at the gluten-free crust I bought at Sprouts. I don't know if you guys have
We have a
Sprouts
Sprouts.
grocery
Yeah.
store.
Yes.
And I want to say the label was like a light greenish and maybe started with a G, but that's all I can remember. So I
Okay.
don't know what the flours were.
Yeah.
There's a company called G Free that has puff pastry that you have to buy frozen, either from them or if a store sells it. I haven't found a store that sells it, but they might make pie crust too, since they make puff pastry. And I have not been impressed with their puff pastry. Let's put it that way. I ordered some and it was not flaky like puff pastry needs to be. But that's very hard to do with gluten-free because of the nature of gluten. Jack?
Well, no, I was just gonna say the one baking mix that everybody seems to love that's truly gluten-free is Pamela's.
Okay.
I don't know that they make any pie crusts, but they're pancakes or what have you that you can make with Pamela's. It's like, I have a friend who's newly diagnosed celiac, and I had told her about it. And I throw some blueberries in my mix when I'm making them. And I told her about that. And she tried it. She was like, "These are the best
The
pancakes I've
pancakes
ever
are
had
great.
in my
Their
life."
pancakes are great.
Yeah.
I can't remember if there's a pie crust. Now, there used to be a product called Perfect Pie Crust from, I've forgotten the name of the manufacturer. It was available at my vocabulary is going today.
Whole Foods.
Yes, thank you. Whole Foods sold the Perfect Pie Crust, and it was indeed a really good pie crust. It was,
Okay.
I could not have replaced it with mine any better. However, about a year ago, they changed their formula. And now it doesn't make as much pie crust. It used to make enough for 4 9-inch pie crusts. And now it only makes 2. And I have a deep dish pie crust, so it doesn't really make enough, especially if you're going to do a 2-crust pie. So I've been very disappointed. I just got some Char flour from Char's. They make the gluten-free
Right.
baguettes and rolls and all that stuff. And I just ordered a pound of their flour. And they have a pie crust recipe on their flour bag, I noticed. And I thought, I'll try my own with that flour mix and see if that will work. I don't
Well,
know.
you'll have to let us know how it goes. I actually just got a box yesterday from Char that I ordered some lady fingers from because I'm gonna try and make homemade tiramisu for Christmas.
Well, be warned that the lady fingers that we used to get that were about 4 inches long, the new ones are about 8 inches long.
Okay, well, that might be too late because I ordered 4 bags, so I
Well,
may.
yeah, but you just know that you're going to have a big thing of tiramisu
Okay,
rather than the one you think you're going to have. Because I was funny. I had a package and I ordered a second package so I could make tiramisu, and I had 2 different sizes. I had the old ones and the new ones, but you'll have the same size. You just have to use a bigger pan than you might have thought you were going to have to use. But then you'll have lots of leftovers.
Which is
I
always
thought
a
tiramisu
plus.
is pretty good. Okay, So-
I was going to let you know that give yourself a pass on those frozen pie shells, because I've had one from Whole Foods that was rock hard as well. So
Oh, good. I'm glad to know it just wasn't me.
it's not just you. It's not just that you're new at this. Yeah.
and we do have to compare brands, and I don't buy those as much as I used to. And so I don't know what brands are good, really. We need to, if anybody finds one that's good, let us know.
Mm.
Okay, so you can also make your own pie crust, and there are King Arthur's has a pie crust recipe, I think, on their flour. Any of the gluten-free flours, this of course, well, no, this one isn't Carol Nijinsky's, but Carol Nijinsky's has her own flour blend. There are several flour blends that are published that would and if they say they make a good pie crust, you can try that too. I don't know. Anyway, if you make
Hey,
it,
Carolyn, who is the pumpkin pie recipe from?
this one,
Yeah,
this is from the Biltmore, and it's not necessarily gluten-free, but but all of it, the only thing in it is pie crust that would be not gluten-free.
thank you.
So but it's a Biltmore recipe. Okay, so you've got your pie crust and the ingredients for the praline part, and then you've got your filling. And the only part I found funny about this one is that it uses a lot of eggs, 3 eggs plus the egg yolk, and heavy cream. And I have made my traditional 1 bowl pumpkin pie with a can of sweetened condensed milk and the pumpkin and all the spices. And that's all you have to have. So that's the quick and easy recipe, but I get sort of tired of that one. And I thought this one would be a nice change. So then you get your candied pecans and whipped cream you might put on top. What they do, come on down, okay, is they combine that butter and the brown sugar and the pecans to make the praline mixture, and they press that mixture into the bottom of the baked pie crust, and they bake it again for 10 minutes. That's already partially baked, and then they put it in for 10 more minutes. I'm not sure about this. Anyway, then they place in the freezer the whole thing, and then they make the pie filling. And after they've made the pie filling, they pour that into the praline mixture on the shell, and they bake it 400 degrees for 10 minutes, and then reduce it to 350 for another 40 to 50 minutes. That may make that pie crust really hard. I don't know. But the consistency of the pie would be somewhere between a traditional pumpkin pie and a pumpkin cheesecake. And because it's got more eggs and all that stuff than some of the others. And then you garnish with candied pecans and whipped cream when it's cool. It looks really pretty. I don't know if I can find the picture, because the picture, it was fairly far away from, no, I'm not sure I get a picture in this. Oh, poop, never mind. I did get a picture of that.
There was a news story that because of a fungus affecting the pumpkin crop in Illinois, canned pumpkin puree is going to be very hard to find. So when you find a can of gluten-free pumpkin, buy it right now.
Well, all of the canned pumpkin is gluten-free because it's naturally gluten-free. However, I couldn't find it in September. I couldn't find a can of pumpkin at my Publix in September. And I was making a pumpkin cheesecake. Happily, I already had a can at home, but I wanted to get a new one for the pumpkin cheesecake recipe I'm going to show you. But I couldn't. And I haven't called them. I need to call them and say, do you have pumpkin? Because I want pumpkin for Thanksgiving too. You're right. There's a pumpkin shortage. Okay. This was a find I don't remember now where I got it, but it was on the internet. And it's a pumpkin cheesecake, and it is absolutely divine, just delicious. What they do is they make their crust out of ginger snap cookies. Now, I didn't use
Yay.
What?
I said, oh, yay, I love ginger snaps.
Oh, good. I didn't use little ginger snaps. What I used were cookies that are about this big around that are from Tate's. And they are available at Kroger's. No, at Publix, I know. I think they're also available at Kroger's, but I'm not sure. Tate's makes both gluten and not gluten-free of the cookies. And they have a great big chocolate chip cookie and a great big ginger cookie. And it is actually has candied pieces of ginger in it.
It's wonderful.
And there's a little package about that tall that I think the gluten ones have a green package with white writing on it. And the gluten-free ones are white with green writing on it. If I'm not
Exactly.
mistaken. Okay.
Right.
And
Yeah,
so
but
They are at Walmart as well.
oh, good. Oh, good. So I got the gluten-free ginger cookies, and I took one bite of the one that I got and went, that would make an awfully good cheesecake crust. And so I stopped. I put the rest of the package away. So I used the whole package of the cookies, grind it up in the processor, and added the butter and the pumpkin seeds. And no, you don't add that. You just add the cookies and the butter. The pumpkin seeds and the maple syrup, they were making a brittle out of it. I did not have my original maple syrup my aunt sends me from New Hampshire every year. I was out of it. And I got some maple syrup from the store that was supposed to be, top grade and all that. It was very watery when I poured it out, and it did not make a brittle. I ended up making a brittle with brown sugar and butter like I would always do. So, but I love the pumpkin seed brittle. It was crunchy, and you put that on top of the pumpkin cheesecake when you're through. So you've got the pumpkin puree, 4 eggs and 3 egg yolks. Lord have mercy, this thing had a lot of eggs in it. And then your spices and brown sugar. And then they used a vanilla bean split likewise, but I just used vanilla extract. 24 ounces of cream cheese. And all of that needs to be at room temperature, plus your mascarpone, a little package of mascarpone. All of it has to be at room temperature so you can mix it at all. And the cookies and the salt and the butter went into the crust, and that got baked for 8 to 10 minutes. So it was set. And then it cooled before you put your filling in. And then they did the brittle with the pepitas and the syrup. You could try that with good maple syrup, but I think the brown sugar and butter made them just as well. So then you lay them out in the oven and let them get crispy and stuff. And then when they're cool, you crunch them over the top of the cake. You can do the crust, you can do the brittle. All of that can be done and stored. Then you do the filling. And I basically did mine in the food processor, just like they say here, but it was tough to get it all in the food processor because that's a lot of cream cheese and a lot of eggs and mascarpone and all that stuff to get. My thing is probably that big around, but it was absolutely chock full. I had to be careful. I actually blended it better. I put part of it in a bowl, and then I blended that and put another part in the bowl and blended that up because it was really almost too much for the processor. You may have a bigger processor bowl than I do. So you put the cool crust on the pan, and they say to put it on a large sheet of foil because sometimes these pans actually don't seal very well sometimes. And this is fairly thin when it gets done. So you put the foil around it so that it won't leak out into your oven, actually, and keep it in the pan. And then you set the the pan into another baking dish lined with a clean kitchen towel. I thought that was funny, but it worked. I put a clean towel in the pan. I put water about an inch up the side of that um, the 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 pan that makes the cheesecake, and then you put hot water. You pour hot water in that roasting pan when you put it on the oven rack and bake it. And it was about almost 2 hours. It was at least they say 100 minutes. I think I left it in what I did is I turned off the oven and left it in for about 20 more minutes with the oven cooling down. And then they wanted to sit in the water bath for 15 minutes after that. And then you can move it and put it on a rack for about 3 hours. And it just has to cool very slowly because cream cheesecakes can crack across the top if you don't. And then they sprinkled the pepitas on top. It was lovely. My brother wanted it for his birthday and it was delicious. So I could think that somebody who doesn't want to deal with pie crust could make a cookie crust cheesecake, and it could be done several days ahead. It can go into the refrigerator, just wrapped tightly, kept chilled. You wouldn't have to do it the day before or the day of. It could be already there. And it's still pumpkin, but it's a little bit different than the traditional pumpkin pie.
And your brothers went back for seconds and thirds. There was not a crumb left.
They're supposed to serve 10, and there were 5 of us. And there wasn't a piece left of it. I had to beg for a slimmer of what my brothers were consuming at the very end because I wanted to have a little more taste of it. It was delicious. I can recommend it. Okay.
And do you guys have Trader Joe's close to you?
We do have
So-
a Trader Joe's. Yes.
So for just like, the Nate's gluten-free ginger cookies,
Yes.
Trader Joe's also has their own version of the
Oh.
gluten-free ginger cookies. And I can, if you want, I've got that bag. I love those cookies.
Okay. Show us
And
that.
So I can go get it to show you what the bag
Sure.
looks like.
That'd be great. That would be an excellent thing to make a crust with. And I've used cookies to make chocolate cookies to make a sort of a peanut butter cheesecake, and I've used ginger cookies to make a sort of a brown sugar cheesecake. Lots of things can be done with those cookies. So what you got, Sue?
Okay, let me,
Okay.
so you can
Ginger chunk
see,
cookies. Yeah.
and they also have the chocolate chip ones, which I have not tried. So, but it's just like a brownish bag,
Yeah.
and it says gluten-free right on top in red.
Does
And
it say mixed flours?
You want to know what flours it's made with?
Yeah. Jack has a problem with cornstarch, right?
Too much potato
Oh,
starch.
potato starch. It's not cornstarch.
Okay, so it's, I can read you the ingredients. It's the sweetened dried ginger pieces, and then, which is ginger and cane sugar. Then it's rice flour, butter, brown sugar, natural flavor, baking soda, salt, and xanthan gum.
So it's just rice
Sounds
flour.
good. Just right.
Yeah. And
Okay.
I don't know if they're cheaper than Nate's or not, but I know Nate's can be expensive.
They
But
are expensive. You're right. But I haven't been to Trader Joe's recently. I need to do that. Okay. Now that's the last I have of Thanksgiving stuff. The other recipes I have are Jeannie's recipes for cookies and Christmas candy. And I have some for cookies and candy too. let's see, this one is Jeannie's recipe. And it's called Caramel Delights. Can you see that?
Mm,
Yep.
Okay. Choco Caramel Delights, a chocolate cookie, maybe rolled in pecans, topped with caramel and drizzled with chocolate. And so it's her family's favorite cookie. It's always on their Christmas plate. So we have the ingredients. She uses a gluten-free, oh, that's her own recipe. That's her own baking mix. Jeannie works as the gluten-free gluten-free granny,
Grandma's
Grandma.
gluten-free.
grandma's gluten-free goodies. That's what it is, goodies. And she has her own mixture of various flours. I know she uses rice flour and sometimes sweet rice flour too. And the other one, I can't remember what she uses now. But that we can get it from her, but she can also we can find out what it is. But you could use any gluten-free flour probably, because she's just created her own blend, because she bakes a lot with her own blend. And if you use a regular gluten-free flour that's like 1-to-1, King Arthur's, all of those, they probably have xanthan gum in them. So you wouldn't need to add more xanthan gum for this recipe if you're using a gluten-free baking mix with xanthan gum. So there's a filling, which consists of Kraft caramels and cream and butter and sugar, and then using chocolate chips with shortening to make a chocolate drizzle. So she makes the caramel filling and the chocolate drizzle, and then she makes the base cookie, and that blended base has to be chilled for an hour, and then she hand stirs the flour mixture into the butter mixture until blended, and then chills it for an hour. Then if you're rolling it in nuts, you beat the egg white and use the egg white to apply to the ball that you've rolled up, and then roll it in the nuts. And then you press it with your thumb on the cookie sheet so there's an indentation, and you bake those for 10 to 12 minutes. And then you cool them completely. And when cooled, you spoon in the caramel filling into the center of each cookie, and then you drizzle the chocolate over top of each cookie. They sound delicious. I've never had them. At least I don't think I've had those. We've had some cookies from her at various events, but I'm not sure I've ever tasted this one. But it sounds good. So, any questions about it?
Well, I just have one general question of where do you guys buy your nuts? Because I've heard nuts.com, but I don't know if you guys have any other places, because every bag I look at in the store says, processed in a facility with wheat or processed on wheat lines. So I'm assuming those aren't safe. I don't know, because gluten-free is not marked on the bag. So
Where are
Well,
you in Texas?
in the Dallas area in
There's
Plano.
there's a nut company in Fort Worth right off the interstate near the Will Rogers Museum. Let me go find the name of it.
and those probably they're packaged. You could buy them there, but they probably have nothing else that they process except nuts.
And I
I'm
think
with you.
Gretchen,
I always order mine from nuts.com also. And they're so good. They're just such good quality. I'm the same way. I'm afraid to buy anything else from the grocery store, because they do all say processed in a facility.
Yeah.
I just don't, yeah.
okay,
Trader
thanks.
Joe's seems to say that on everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, in Fort Worth, it's the Vending Nut Company.
Oh, okay. Vending Nut Company. Okay.
76107 is the zip code.
Yeah, I'll put that in my phone. I make a list of gluten-free stuff. So it's the Vending Nut Company.
Uh-huh. And actually, this is the Tours mix from the Tours restaurant that used to be there. And you can put it on top of salads. And it's a family favorite. It's sliced blanched almonds, sesame seeds, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, peanut oil, and salt.
Oh,
It's very good.
Mhm.
And her sister sends her some and she shares with me. Wonderful.
Yeah. But in Texas, you should be able to get just plain pecans just about anywhere. My
Well,
sister
you
drives from Weathersfield.
can, but once again, they all say, like, even if local bags say
Really?
processed in, yeah.
I would think that the vending nut company would not have anything on their line.
Because
that
that's
would
all they do.
Yeah.
Well, right, yeah, from that company, yeah. But because being in Texas, right, you can see other local pecans and they
Yeah.
all still have the allergy disclaimer on it.
Mhm.
Now they do make probably some spiced mixes, so you would still look at the labels, but I would try that.
Okay, thank you.
Melissa, what you need?
Yes, I was gonna say I've bought Fisher brand pecans
Uh-huh.
and they say gluten-free. Well, actually they say naturally gluten-free, but they don't say processed in a place that processes wheat, and they only contain pecans. And I've never had a problem with them.
I think Fisher's does just processed nuts in their facility.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's good to know too.
FISHER.
Yes, it's a blue bag.
What grocery store do you get those from?
I get them at Kroger's, but
Oh,
I
okay.
think they also have them. I think I've seen them at maybe Walmart.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Okay, anybody else have any questions about this particular recipe? Okay, we've got another of Jeannie's, I think. Where's her ribbon cookies? There they are. Okay. This is her raspberry ribbons, and they're butter cookies with a ribbon of raspberry jam in it. And she says they look very pretty on a Christmas cookie plate. And it's basically just a butter cookie, and you can use one of the plant-based butters if you don't use real butter, sugar and egg, and her baking mix again. And I still think that you would be safe to use a regular gluten-free flour mix that you can obtain without, if it has xanthan gum in it, you wouldn't need the xanthan gum. But the baking powder, salt. So basically she creams the sugar and eggs and vanilla together, and then she adds the dry ingredients and mix it by hand until it's mixed, and then she beats it briefly, and then she divides it into 4 logs that are about 10 by 2.5 inches, and she places them apart, places 4 inches apart on the parchment sheet, make a 1/2 inch depression down the center of the log, and bake in the oven for 350 degrees for 10 minutes. And then you fill the depression down the log with the jam, and continue to bake it for another 10 to 15 minutes. And then you let them cool, and you cut into slices and let them cool. And then she's got a little drizzle of confectioner sugar, evaporated milk, and vanilla over the warm cookies. They sound very good. I may have to try those. That's what they look like. You see that they were cut. We don't see the side of them. They were in a log, and then they had the thing put all the way down the center with the jam, and then she drizzles them with the icing. Any question about that? I've got some new recipes that I want to try. One is called salted butterscotch cookies, and they call for something like cup for cup, one for one, one on one. There's all kinds of them now. They didn't used to be. And basically, it's a butter cookie. She also uses a vegetable shortening in addition to the butter in those, and eggs that are cold, and the butterscotch chips. And those butterscotch chips, like chocolate chips, usually say that they're gluten free. I use that in a fudge that I use, those butterscotch chips. Now, I don't know about the malted sea salt flakes and exactly where you get them, but they're sprinkled on at the end. Everybody's doing that these days. Essentially, they're mixing the wet ingredients and the dry ingredients, and add half of the remaining dry ingredients, and then incorporate it until it gets incorporated. And then should be an R in there. Remaining. Okay, and then you don't want it sticky. You want it about 40 seconds is what you said to mix it. Don't over mix it. And if you over mix it, you might get flat cookies. Then you stir in the butterscotch chips, and you scoop out a third of a cup and roll into round balls that are 1.5 inches in diameter. That's pretty big. And then you place only 6 cookies on each prepared baking sheet because they're big cookies. Bake in the lower middle racks until tops are light brown and little cracks forming, about 12 to 14 minutes. And this recipe suggests spinning the pan 180 degrees halfway through. I've seen several recipes nowadays doing that. I think it's because ovens aren't heating consistently throughout the oven, and you have to do that because one spot of the oven is hotter than the other, and you turn it around and you get more even baked cookies. But I've never had that problem with my oven. But if you have a problem that the ones in the back get browner than the ones in the front because it's near the door, that's a good idea, is to flip them around so that they have an equal amount of that spot of the oven. And then sprinkle the salt flakes on top of each cookie as you take them out of the oven, and let them cool and transfer them to something else. These are, I don't know that I would make them that big, but I like the sound of the cookie. So, any questions about that one? I don't know who the milk jar cookies bake book is, but I got it off the internet somewhere. All right, what else do I have? I have trouble cookies.
What?
They're called trouble cookies because evidently you have a problem eating them, or not, not refraining from eating them.
I thought trouble cookies were gluten cookies for us.
Well, that's true too, but this is gluten-free trouble cookies. They're based on cashews, and they also use toffee chips. Now I have purchased those Heath bits, and they're in the store, and they are gluten-free, and they are little chunks of what would be in a big Heath bar. They're little pieces of it, and they go in this cookie. And they use sorghum flour and all-purpose flour. And she said something about sorghum flour. She likes that one for fiber, adds fiber and flavor. But if you can't find it, you can experiment with buckwheat, cassava, any of the ancient grain that we've been substituting for wheat these days. And then it has shredded coconut in it as well as on it, from what I can understand. Let's see. So you toast the cashews and you let them cool, and then you chop them into pieces, and then you beat the butter and brown sugar and add the egg and vanilla, and then you add your dry ingredients, And I always think it's best to combine your dry ingredients like the sorghum flour and the all-purpose flour and the soda and powder and salt, baking powder. I would put that all together and sort of whisk it together before I put it in, because putting each one of those in separately creates a possibility that there's just not an equal distribution of those things in the butter mixture that you've already beaten. It doesn't say that on this recipe, but that's what I would normally do, is take all those dry ingredients together and whisk them up in a bowl and then add them to the mixture. And then you've got your cashew pieces and your coconut and your toffee pieces that you add in, and you just mix that together. And they wrap it and chill it for up to 2 days. So you could do that now and make them closer to Christmas or whatever. And then you transfer to the parchment paper or plastic wrap or one of those Silpat things, and you flatten the ball into a disc, wrap it tightly to prevent it from drying out when you've got it in the refrigerator. And then you divide the dough into 16 equal portions. That's an ounce and a half of stuff. Again, that's a big cookie. These people are not going little in their cookies. But roll it into a ball, divide the cookies between the 2 parchment lined baking sheets so that they're 3 inches apart, flatten them with your palm of your hand, decorate them with sprinkled coconut, and then bake them. And again, they're advising rotating the sheets from top to bottom and front to back halfway through. I don't think I could do all that, but it may be a great idea, but I don't have enough place to put cookie sheets and throw them around. So I don't know. Now, what they said you can do, and I thought this was interesting, is that you can form it into the balls, freeze them on a sheet, and then put them into a plastic container that you can freeze, a freezer bag that seals tightly. And then you just take a few minutes longer to bake. But they can be baked 2 days ahead and stored too. Any questions about trouble cookies? They sound good. Of course, my friend Ann wouldn't want them because they have coconut on them. She doesn't like coconut. Let's see, I have one more thing or 2 more things. Just guess one more thing, as far as I can tell. And this is a sort of a bark, pistachio cranberry bark. And what I liked about that was that it's sort of green and red and white chocolate. So, or in chocolate rather, but it's green pistachios and dried cranberries with white chocolate chips and chocolate chips. And what they do is they make a bottom layer of the chocolate chips, and they're recommending microwave heating of the microwave chips. And then you have to basically take those out and stir them up and then continue it for like 10 seconds at a time until you get the right consistency. That they say, of course, you can use a double boiler. Make sure the water doesn't touch the top part, and you can melt the chips in that. And then they add the pistachios, the chocolate, and pour it out on parchment paper or a Silpat pad or one of those things that you can get things off of easily until it's about 1/8 of an inch thick. And then they put the white chocolate chips in the microwave and get them smooth, and they drop spoonfuls here and there. In other words, they don't just make a whole nother layer of white. They sort of scrizzle out the white and swirl it around into the semi-sweet. And then they sprinkle the rest of the pistachios and the cranberries on the top and let it cool. And it can be kept in the refrigerator and then broken up into chunks, cut into pieces, whatever you want to do with it. But I think it looks very festive, the cranberry bark. Yes, Gretchen?
I wanted to share my favorite diet trick. Have y'all seen these Lily's chocolate chips?
No.
Oh man, oh man. My daughter was visiting and we were all on a diet, and on Weight Watchers too, but anyhow, you can have 60 of these chips for 50 calories. Like, that's unbelievable. I think it's like you can have 60 of them for, I believe it was like one Weight Watcher point, but it's dairy-free, gluten-free, sugar-free, and they're not bad. Like, when you just need chocolate and you're trying to behave, they're
Where
really
did you
good.
get them? Gretchen, where did you get them?
You can get them almost anywhere. Publix for sure. I mean,
Okay,
Whole Foods. I'm not sure about Kroger, probably. They're not at Aldi, of course, but
and they're with the other chocolate chips in the store?
yes, yeah, at Publix they are.
Good.
And I mean, of course, it's not as good as a regular, but it's pretty darn good for 60 chips for 50 calories.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I love it. Sometimes I can just go on a diet just with this. My meal can be centered around chocolate chips. I buy like 5 bags at a time. I'm really addicted to them.
Well, I don't know if they would melt the same way. Have you tried
Probably
that?
not. No, it would not be as good. This is not like for company. This is just if
It's
you're
just
trying to detox after the holidays kind of thing.
okay. Okay. Sue, did you have any more questions? Did you get some ideas you might want to use?
Yep, I did. Thanks for all the cookie recipes. And I just wanted to ask everyone what their favorite one-for-one flour is, because it seems like even though they say it's a one-for-one replacement, it doesn't really seem like it is. So I've only tried making a few cookies and they've just turned out, okay. So that's why I know it's not going to be the same, right, as using regular flour, but I'm the only one in my family who's has celiac. So I'm trying to find cookies that I can bake that everyone will like,
Well,
that
the
are
first thing is you don't
gluten-free.
tell them they're gluten-free. Of course, if you bring them, they'll probably know they're gluten-free. But one of the things I found is that people don't think they're going to like it because it's gluten-free. And so therefore they don't like it, even though they're perfectly good. But like this cheesecake, I could not have had a cheesecake that was any better than that cheesecake, and it was totally gluten-free. With the flours, I try them all. I've tried them all, and none of them have been perfect. I've got a King Arthur's. I just got the Shars. I've got Cup for Cup, I think is one of the ones I have. And some of them might be better for cookies, and some of them might be better for pastry crust. It really is a lot of experimentation, unfortunately.
Yeah, because at this point, at least for me, just to have cookies, and I don't have sweets very often, but and I've tried, yes, Sweet Lorraine's is good. I'm to the point now where I'm just better off buying it than trying to cook it. But that's why I wanted to see
I'm with Jack. I go with Pamela's.
Pamela's. Okay.
And I had my parents' wedding anniversary, and I baked cupcakes. No one knows it's gluten-free or anything different. People love it.
Okay.
You got a
Jack,
cookie
talk
recipe
so we
on
can
the
see
back.
your product.
Oh, yep, I can see. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
the
but Jack,
Pamela.
you need to talk so you can see the picture. You'll be
Yeah,
big
so
if you talk.
that's all right. So that's
There you
Pamela's
go.
is the brand. It's the gluten-free baking and pancake mix. They got a number of recipes on the back, including pancakes, waffles, muffins, and there is like a chocolate chip cookie
Okay.
recipe there. So clearly you could make other cookies with this.
Pamela's has always been good for the pancakes and muffins and things like that. I don't think I've tried her chocolate chip cookie, but I would
haven't either.
trust her chocolate cookie. But I don't really like the Tates because they're too crispy. I like a chewy chocolate chip, and that has almond flour in her mix. I bet
Right.
that would be a chewier cookie. I would probably like
I
it.
bet it would. The pancakes are pretty light.
Yes, but the cookie I think would be moist. I don't really
Yeah.
like those big cake cookies that are so crispy. They taste
Right.
good, but I want the chew factor, I guess.
And you can,
Okay,
I was just gonna say here, I mean, you can find it at Kroger's, Whole Foods. I'm not sure where all else. I don't know. I don't know that Aldi's or anybody else like that sells Pamela's, but
all these would more
Okay.
likely sell a brand that they bring in from Europe,
yeah.
their own brand kind of thing, I think. And they may be good, and they're good. What the ones I've had from all these, and it's been since my surgery, so it's been more than 2 years since I've been to an Aldi's, but they were quite good. I was very impressed with the crackers and cookies and things that I had got at that time.
Doesn't King Arthur's have a good 1-for-1 mix?
I think King Arthur's is pretty good. It's more, I think it's lighter and more like for a cake. I mean, the problem is cake flour in wheat form is very fluffy and light, the way they've mixed that cake flour. And if we use a regular or even uh, a regular mix that's gluten free, that's set more for pastries and pancakes and stuff like that, it might be too heavy for a cake. And even Jeannie makes cakes, and sometimes her cakes are light and sometimes her cakes are heavy. And it's because of the other ingredients with her mix that they don't work as well. And she says it. I know this one didn't come out very well. So she's going to then have more in the, experiment more. And everything we do is sort of experimentation. And when you find something you really like that really works, then you want to make that recipe one that you use more often and that you really manage to succeed, like that pumpkin cheesecake. I mean, that was like, if I could make that every week, of course I'd be 400 pounds by then, but I couldn't do it. But that would be something I would take to the potluck, for example. And you could even make that cheesecake into little muffin tins and put the crust into a little muffin tin and then put the cheesecake in there. But the cheesecake doesn't just bake, it has to steam with the water. So you'd have to figure out how to get that muffin tin into another container with the water in it and stuff. But
Okay, and actually I do have, now I'm thinking if you guys are interested, I have one cookie recipe I could share. It's not necessarily a holiday cookie, but you make it in a cast iron skillet with almond flour, and it's like a chocolate chip cookie with almond flour, and then you stick in frozen raspberries.
ooh,
And that turns out good. So should I send that to Jack
yes, that would be great.
Yeah, you could just send it to our Nashville celiacs.
or National? So, okay, yep. So where I have had luck, it seems like it's more, and I've also, if you guys want a flourless chocolate torte. So it
Yes,
seems like when I am avoiding flour, that's when I do better. So,
because we don't have a perfect blend. Exactly. We just have not found one perfect blend that will do everything in our, what we want to cook. We probably need different blends for different things. Cake flour is different from pie crust flour and stuff like that. And we just aren't doing that. We just don't have that available to us yet.
okay, so
It's
yep, I'll
amazing
get
you're
those
in it.
2 recipes and I'll send
Sure.
them in.
That'd be great. Melissa, do you have any?
I knew real quick, I knew a personal chef whose to die for brownies were made with almond flour. And the almond flour just kicked it up to a next level of sweetness. If I could find that recipe, I'll share it.
Oh, that'd be
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, the Pamela's is more rice flour, but it does have almond flour in it.
Yeah, I think the combination is quite good. Melissa, do you have any questions?
No, I was just gonna say that the brownie recipe that I've absolutely loved is the one from America's Test Kitchen. They're lunchbox brownies.
Wow,
And I can send you that recipe if you
that
like.
would be good. That'd be good.
And they are fudgy and chocolatey and rich. And I've taken them places and people just rave over them.
Great.
So, but I'll have to try the almond flour brownies too. I bet that's very good. But the America's Test Kitchen has recommendations for flour mixtures, but they
Now,
have their own they think is best, but
I've
they can
I've
say,
seen, I think I got their cookbook, one of their cookbooks, their gluten-free cookbook from the library. And I
yes,
copied out a few recipes from there and they tested the various flours and
Yep.
recommended them for different things. And then they had a blend of their own, I suppose, that they
yes,
they
do.
really use. And I've got that somewhere. I don't remember where I put that, but yes, that's something I need to dig out. Yeah, good.
Yeah, they even say if you make their recipes with King Arthur's flour blend, then you may need slightly less, or if you make it with this flour blend, you need this
I
much flour.
remember that. Yeah, I remember that list of which one. And the other thing that American Test Kitchen recommends that most of our recipes don't use, European recipes use, they weigh the
Yes,
flours. And almond flour, obviously, a cup of almond flour weighs a whole lot more than a cup of wheat flour or cassava flour or sorghum flour or cornstarch for that matter. Cornstarch doesn't hardly weigh anything. But it's important to lighten up some of the heavier flours. So I don't know exactly what the situation is, but most of our recipes come in a cup and a spoonful and so forth. But the European recipes call for so many grams of this and so many grams of that. And the America's Test Kitchen has said that those are the most accurate recipes because you're actually getting the quantity as it is by weight rather than a cup, which could be various weights. So
Hey,
that,
Tori,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, if, yeah, that's good to share. If you could send us like the
Yep.
name of the book or a
Yep.
web link to buy it or something like
Yeah.
that.
and these are at the public library.
I'll
Oh,
sh-
are they? Oh, I'll have to, well, I wonder if our library has
They
them.
could
I'll
get them
have
on
to,
interlibrary loan.
if
oh,
they don't,
okay.
yeah, they
I'll
do,
try
they
to share
can for me.
when we, I'm sorry, Caroline, when we share the recipes,
Yep.
I'll try to include that.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
So
Well,
do you like those cookbooks?
Mm.
Have you, okay.
The American Test Kitchen, I ended up copying a lot of recipes from it, but I got to go find where I put those recipes because I used them a lot at the time, and then they've gotten buried probably under a few other things that happened in my kitchen.
Is that similar to your recipe, Melissa, or was that where you found it, or
Yes.
did you find it online?
that's where I found my recipe. I got both of their cookbooks, both of their gluten-free cookbooks. There's a volume 1 and a volume 2.
Mhm.
And I mostly just start with those when I cook.
Mhm.
And they're detailed recipes and they're sometimes a little more complex than if you just want to stir something up really quickly, but they always come out good.
Well, that's one of the things about America's Test Kitchen I like is that they have tested everything. And they've
Yes.
tested it with different flours and with different kinds of temperatures. And once they give you the recipe, the reason that you do it is because it's going to come out right that way. And you know that it's going to come out good every time.
You just allow a little extra time, and if you
Yeah.
don't have a food
Right.
scale, go to Walmart and get a $15 food scale. It'll work great.
Yeah, yeah, I've got one, so that's.
Yeah, I have one that changes from grams to ounces as well. So that if you have an ounce, have a recipe in ounces, or you get a European recipe in grams, you can switch it back and forth so that you can accurately measure whatever you need to measure. It really does help.
Yes, and the thing I like about my food scale, and I'm sure this is true on most of them, it has what they call a tare function. Tare, so
Correct.
that you put your bowl onto the scales and press tare, and then it knows the weight of the bowl. And when you add the ingredients, it doesn't count the weight of the bowl.
That's correct. And you see them on the British baking show all the time, where they put a bowl on there and then they start adding so much sugar and so much flour. And you go, how in the hell are they doing that? And it's the scale that has the ability to know and record the weight of the bowl. And then you put so much flour in. And if you put too much in, you can take a little out before you add something else. But
Yep.
sometimes I don't put everything in that one bowl. I put the flour in and then put it in a big bowl, and then I measure the sugar and I put that in without with the tare still working, but not adding flour and sugar and stuff together at the same time. Because if you put too much in, it's hard to take it back out if you've got more than one ingredient in there. So I usually use 2 bowls to do that, but I think it's very helpful. Okay, anything else? We are 2:34 and I don't have any more recipes to share, and we've got some recipes that are going to be sent to us. Anybody else? Yes, Gretchen?
With the help of my daughter, Archie now has an Instagram. It's called Archie Gluten Detective, one word. So I'm trying to make it educational. I'm not real savvy with how to make it, beautiful or whatever, but I'm trying to just share information that,
Cool.
to help. Archie Gluten Detective.
That's really cool.
And you said that was Instagram?
Yes.
And he's so cute. He's so
And I'm
fun.
sorry, what was that again? Archie Gluten?
Archie Gluten Detective, one word, Archie Gluten Detective. And picture of him, black border collie.
Right,
You
okay,
recognize him.
thanks.
And then they'll give you, if you follow him, other, recommendations, and there's a whole bunch of people out there doing it. And if you see everything that everybody shares, it's a lot of good information about products and where to look out for gluten, and it's really helpful. Paper plates and on and on. I feel like I've learned a lot from watching other people's Instagram with their dogs.
Carol Ann, do you think that's something that maybe was worth us bringing to the attention of the National Celiac
I
Association?
have already.
You have, okay.
And once we get my videos that are on my computer up onto the website at YouTube, they will have access to that. And she said she could put a link. Carla said she could put a link at the NCAA website about our videos that we have. So
Okay.
that would spread the word. But yeah, she does know about it, because we talked about it after the last meeting.
Okay, maybe next newsletter is something we could include what Gretchen just mentioned, how to get to Archie on Instagram.
Yeah, I didn't know that when I created this newsletter. I wasn't sure she had it up.
Yeah. My daughter had to help me quite a bit with that. Yeah, but
Understandable.
it's
And
I don't do Instagram yet. I'm on Facebook, but I haven't done
I
it.
never had.
Yeah, either have I, and I don't know if you guys do TikToks. I don't, but my husband does TikTok, and he'll find, like, once it knows what you're looking for, it just brings stuff up. But he shared with me, there are a couple people who have celiac disease, and same thing as Instagram. You can watch these quick, short TikToks, or like this one girl was traveling 9 states and looking for gluten-free restaurants and did
Wow.
critiques on them. Or another girl was on vacation in Europe and was walking through the store, and it was amazing how cheap gluten-free food was in
Hmm.
Europe compared to here. So
Uh-huh.
there's also a lot of stuff on TikTok, but I have not done TikTok yet. So
Well, we're all learning this stuff. Is there anything else we need to talk about today? Otherwise, we're going to send recipes to NashvilleCeliacs.org, and Jack can put them together to send to us. Now, I'm going to save mine that are, I've got some that are already PDFs, but some of the others that aren't, I'm going to save it as a PDF so that everybody can read it and see it the same way. And if you can do that, I don't know, Sue, if you can do that and save it.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually, I can save it as a PDF. I'm gonna see if I can actually have my husband help me to scan it from our printer and then send it. So when we do that, I can see if I can
Yeah,
save it as a PDF.
just easier for everybody to read it when it's
Right,
in a PDF
right.
form. Jack?
It sounds like a plan.
Okay. Anybody
The
else?
newsletter mentioned the national NCA webinar. The newsletter said it's on Monday, but it's actually on Wednesday,
Ooh,
Wednesday, the 17th.
Is that the food one
Uh-huh.
or,
Is
okay,
that when
the
it-
holiday one?
Yeah,
That
the
one
holiday.
at noon?
It's on Wednesday.
I know, but is it at noon?
I think so,
Or-
yes.
I think it's noon. Yeah. And it said it incorrectly on the website, on the newsletter?
Yeah, it said
Oh,
Monday.
pretty. Well, maybe Jack, we could send out a little reminder
Yeah.
for people to know. Because I
Sure.
had it on Wednesday on my calendar. I don't know why. I would have put it differently, but I didn't catch it, and neither did our wonderful editor, Peggy, who catches a lot of things that I didn't see. And oh gosh, I got to make a lot of changes. But yeah, that I will see if we can get that corrected so that people know that that's coming up. Because if they couldn't come to this, they might be able to come to that.
And the good news is you can log in later if you can't do it live. I like that they
Right.
do that.
Right, that they have a version of it that's recorded, yeah. Sort of like the Athens Storytelling Festival. Thank goodness it's also available a little bit later because I was busy. Anything else? Our next meeting won't be till March, as far as I know. We don't try to do anything in January and February when it's snowy. And we will hope that by then we can meet at the church in our regular meeting. But what we have thought of doing is allowing the Zoom. We can do that from the room where we meet. We can actually have a Zoom meeting. So Sue could join us from her meeting and be able to hear what we're doing. If you want to do that, Sue.
Well, thanks. I appreciate you guys making me a friend of your
Well, I mean,
chapter.
if we have
So-
the equipment, it's not just you. We could have people
Right.
who physically couldn't come, who are unable to come but want to come virtually, and they can stay at home and
sure.
come to our meeting. And you might be in Texas and they might be just around the corner, but we'll all be able to see the program from and each other like we're doing now on Zoom. So
Yeah, or
think
people like a friend of mine here who has a sister-in-law in East Tennessee who's celiac, and I had shared the newsletter with her and said, hey,
yeah,
we're NCA of Tennessee, so if you live somewhere else in Tennessee for that matter, maybe we encourage people to check in on us.
well, and I don't think that's going to go away. I mean, I think that many groups that I'm part of have said we're going to still Zoom even if we're meeting in person. That
Yeah.
there will be people there, but there will also be people
Oh
not
yeah,
virtual. They'll all be
Same.
virtual.
same thing. I've got two other nonprofits I work with, and they're both thinking the same thing.
Because it's the way we can do it. I mean, I frankly would rather stay home on Sunday mornings and participate in the church virtually. And they're discussion groups that I don't want to go out at 7:00 at night for a discussion group, but I can do it virtually. So for me, not having to physically go out, find a parking place, find a room, all of that is preferable. So I'm kind of zooming everything. Okay.
I
I
would just like to add that we've come a long way, baby, because Sue, I grew up in Fort Worth, and when I was diagnosed just about exactly 30 years ago, there was no gluten-free markings on any cans or labels or anything. And my only resource was a regional director in Houston, Texas, with an expensive long-distance phone bill.
Wow.
We've come a long way.
I know, so that it is very nice. And I am surprised that the Dallas area, we don't have an active chapter. So that's why I always attend Carla's call
Hmm.
and why I'm crashing your call because
You're not crashing. You're welcome.
so
Funny.
thank you. So yeah, there's from what I can tell and talking to this other lady in the area, she keeps on calling the phone number and I've written them an email and she gets nothing and I get nothing. So
Well, we don't know. There was a group active in Houston, and I was getting their newsletters on a regular basis, but I
Oh,
have
yeah.
not gotten a newsletter in at least 6 months
Wow.
from Houston. I'll have to go back and look and see when the last one was, but I was on the list and I was getting it, and suddenly it just doesn't seem to be going. I don't know if she's just given up at this point or whether she got ill. I have no idea.
Well, after 30 years, she's kind of entitled to step aside.
Of
Um,
course.
And I think they stopped meeting in person, but she was still doing the newsletter.
She was still doing the newsletter and they were not meeting. You're right. But I haven't gotten a newsletter from her in the recent past. So I'm not sure if Janet's still doing it at all. She may have just had to give up. And nobody else took it over. That's another whole issue. But continuation of this is difficult sometimes. Well, I appreciate everybody coming. I think we had a great time. I learned some things and hope you did too. And we will send out the recipes so that you can have them to prepare stuff for the holidays.
Thank you, Carol Ann.
thank you,
Good to see
everyone.
you
Have a
soon
good
in Texas. Thank you,
holiday.
everybody.
Bye.
You.
Bye.
Happy holidays.
You too.
Too.